there, it's Angie Zimmerman coming to you from Pacific Callas, just as it says on my apron. And what I'm going to show you today is how to use their beautiful calla lilies to create a hand-tied bouquet that can be used for either a bride or her bridesmaids. In this particular instance, they're going to be used for bridesmaids. You can see I've got some already made. So this is what we're going to end up having when we're finished. It is 30 stems of white mini callas. It's about a yard of satin ribbon and some boutonniere pins that have been cut down to use as, adornment, because they definitely adorn the bouquet handle, but they also are functional in that they hold the ribbon in place. Okay, so this is what we're going to make. Now, I have shown before how to process your calla lilies, but in case you never saw that video, I'm going to do a little quick rundown on what happens when they come in. Typically, calla lilies come in 10 stem bunches, and they'll be bound together usually with some tape and inserted inside a plastic sleeve, and then around that sleeve is some more tape to keep the sleeve in place. And that's all intended to protect your calla lilies while they're in shipment. So when they arrive, what you want to do is unwrap them, take them out of those sleeves, cut those off, and then give each calla lily a fresh cut. Calla lilies respond much better to a nice sharp knife. This is a florist knife. If you don't have a good florist knife, use a kitchen knife as long as it's really sharp. I cannot stress that enough. They need to be really, really sharp. And cutting through these stems is similar to cutting through celery or green onions. Actually, this looks a lot like green onions when you cut these little stems off. So that's what you'd want to do. You always want to give them a quick dip, literally 1 second, in a solution that's a hydrating solution. The one that I like to use is called Quick Dip. And then you would put them into a vase with water, just a little bit of water, only about 2 inches, because calla lilies don't need that much water, and if you put too much water in the vase, what will happen is the stems tend to get kind of slimy and they start to literally disintegrate. I mean, they literally start falling apart. And once that happens, that part of the stem is no longer usable. And when you're making a bouquet like this, you need some of that length. I mean, part of that stem is important to the whole design process. Okay, so these have already been processed. I just wanted to give you a quick heads up on what you would do when they come in. So in order to make a bouquet like this, I start out with usually 3 callas in my hand, and I start doing a little cluster with them. And I'm going to keep adding to this cluster until I've used all of the callas. As I do this, often I have to adjust where the flowers are, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, so that ultimately when I'm finished, they're all pretty much at the same length. I always call this a flat top hand-tied bouquet, and you'll see the difference because I'm going to be doing some other demos for you, and there'll be some that are just round hand-tied bouquets, but this one is more flat across the top. And you want to hold all of this in your hand. That's very important. You don't have to strangle it, but you want to have a good enough grip that the flowers aren't falling from where you're positioning them. So I just keep adding, and as I add, I turn a little bit just so that I can see what I'm doing and make sure that I'm keeping this bouquet round. That's important to me, and it would be important to you as well. And again, this is called a hand-tied bouquet. So there's a few things that you're going to need in addition to this. And I actually should have had mine ready, and I didn't. You're going to want some ribbon, because you're going to need some ribbon for wrapping around the stem. You're going to need some tape. This is called bowl tape, and this is the 1/2 inch size, which is the size I prefer to use. I've seen people do different things for binding these stems together. Again, I like that tape. It's easy to use, it's strong, and it doesn't harm the flowers. I know some people will use a chenille stem. I've seen some people use rubber bands. I guess if that's done carefully, it would work. I mean, I'm sure it does work. I mean, obviously some people have done it, but it just would not be my preferred method. But if you don't have access to this kind of tape, again, it's called bowl tape, and you can typically buy it at a craft store or a floral supply store, then you can try one of those other methods. Again, I just keep turning this in my hand. And when we're all done, we're going to bind these with the tape. And they start getting, this is 30 stems, and beyond this, it starts getting a little bit unmanageable to hold in your hand. I guess that somewhat depends on how big your hands are. So some of you might have trouble even holding this many stems. If that were to be the case, then what I would recommend is after you get a few of the stems in your hand and you like where they look, go ahead and put a little bit of tape on them to hold them together, and then add some more stems around that, and then again add some more tape to hold it in place, and just keep doing that until you get to your finished product. So this looked pretty good. I'm trying to look at it from all different angles. I want to make sure that there's not a flower that's like really tall or really short. So again, just make small adjustments as you see necessary as you look at this. I'm thinking that this looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is just take this tape and I'm going to bind these stems together. Okay, and now that holds everything right in place where I want it to be. And then I can look at this one more time and just make sure that this is exactly where I want everything to be. If it's not, you still have an opportunity to undo that tape and then, readjust your flowers and then tape them back up again. Now, you want to cut these stem ends, and when you're doing a hand-tied bouquet like this, you do a blunt cut, which means that you're cutting straight across. Okay, they cut very, very easily, and I need to make sure that this is about the same length as the other ones. Since this is for a wedding and the bridesmaids are all going to be carrying this, that's pretty close, but I think this could go down just about a ½ inch more. So again, I'm going to hold this on my cutting mat. I hold all those stems together, and then I'm just going to give it another little cut. The next step is to give our bouquet a little bit of a ribbon wrap. And as you can see, I've already made 3 of these. This is the 4th. And so there was a piece of ribbon. Sometimes ribbon companies will do this to you. They tape together strips of ribbon, and that's what happens. So I had to cut out a piece of ribbon that I wasn't expecting to cut. As it turned out, it's about the right size for one of these bouquet wraps, so I'm going to go ahead and use it for that. And that was about a 3-foot or 1 yard size length of ribbon. And I'm twisting and turning and pulling the ribbon all at the same time. When you get to the end, I always like to turn my ribbon underneath just a tad so that you don't have any frayed edges showing. And I've already done this. I've cut some boutonniere pins down to smaller sizes to use to hold my ribbon in place. So I'm going to go ahead and use these pins that I've already got cut down, but I'm going to show you how I do this so that you also know how to do it when you're ready to do your hand-tied bouquets. If the stem is fat enough, you may not need to cut down those pins, but I find for the most part that the stems are never that fat to take the entire length of a boutonniere pin. So I would say that 99.9% of the time I'm cutting them down. Okay, so there is our hand-tied bouquet. Isn't that lovely? And wasn't that easy to do? All right, let me just show you quickly what you do to cut down your pins. You buy the boutonniere pins. They, come in different types of boxes. This happens to be how these came. And they're probably, they come in different lengths. This is about 1.5 inches. You'll need wire cutters, and you get down and you want to cut. I try to cut at a bit of an angle so that I can leave a little bit of a pin shape at the end, a point, so to speak, so that it makes it a little bit easier to get into my ribbon. Okay, and then I cut that right down to probably that's about a 1/2 inch size, maybe 3/4. And I usually do that ahead of time so that when I get to this point, I'm just ready to go. Okay, enjoy. That was really easy to do, and I know that you can do it too. Mini callas come in all kinds of colors. These happen to be the white. You can see behind me, I've got some lavender, I've got some dark purple. These are sometimes called black or burgundy. They come in pink, they come in orange, they come in yellow. They come in so many colors. They're really a great resource because they come in so many colors, and they're so easy to do, to arrange with. And look how great this looks. Enjoy. Hope to see you again soon.